Ilete baraka kwetu, haki iwe ngao na mlinzi, na tukae na ndugu, amani na uhuru, raha tupate na ustawi.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It is important to have this document. This document will protect the national interest while at the same time be able to propagate and protect liberties. Therefore, we are saying we must find where rain is beating us and where it began hitting us. And then we are going to go to the depth of all our challenges based on this constitution and get a bright future, not only for us, but for the generations to come. Because we are duty-bound to bequeath the generation that's going to come a better country and a better document.
Our youth, that 14-year-old teenager, has spent 3/4 of the time locked up in a dark room. There are times when they get sunlight, like the counties. We have counties implemented. We have an expanded and responsive judiciary going. There are certain other aspects that work. There has been a living discussion on public participation and all that. Those are moments of sunlight. But there are darknesses in this, our constitutional journey, that we must recognize, because it's only from recognizing them that we must do something about it. Uraia's call for all of us is a call for utu, the practice, and even the explaining to ourselves and to each other. What does utu really mean? And how can we get utu into the fabric, the national fabric of our country?
It's 14 years, yeah? We are talking about accountability. Still, I'll echo, what are you doing as an individual, as a young person? How are you using this document? How are you pushing this discussion ahead? Because we are the future, we are the today's leaders, right?
There have been sacrifices. Indeed, there are people who have paid the ultimate price. People have died in the quest for this constitution. So we honor their memories, we honor those that were injured, we honor those that have made exceptional sacrifices to ensure that this constitution that we have as Kenya is there. So courage, determination, and passion. And I am sure that there are many other words that can be used to describe that. We must first of all own the constitution ourselves. There is a notion that when you think about implementation of the constitution, we think of the government, quote unquote. We think of the three arms of government as the ones that must implement it. The Gen Z movement has reminded all of us that all of us have agency. All of us have agency. So none of us is helpless. All of us have a role in terms of implementing this very progressive constitution. Constitutionalism. It is something that all of us then are called to do.
I come from the trenches. When you hear the protesters protesting and being released on bail, I think I must have been the first person to start deploying those techniques to get protesters released on bail to continue protesting. So the theme of my talk is the transformative constitution of Kenya matters because it works in aid even for those who do not believe in it. The transformative constitution of Kenya has predicates. It has predicates and prescriptions. So, for example, the donated judicial authority and how it is exercised is contained in Article 159. And part of the predicate of the exercise of the donated judicial authority includes promoting all other forms of dispute resolution that exist, including traditional ones. We belong to society. So by belonging to society, by engaging society, we can better administer justice in line with the constitutional predicate. So the first recommendation I make here is you need to support one another. For those who do not have national identity cards, you need to support them to obtain those identity cards. The institution that registers Kenyans needs to be held to account. It is totally unacceptable to have close to 6 million people who cannot register as voters for one reason or the other. One other thing we have to really do is, let's be unashamed that we are activists. Nowadays, at least I can see even policemen in uniform proclaiming that they believe in the Constitution of Kenya and human rights. They are human rights activists. So activists should be equipped, empowered to engage in litigation, public interest litigation, in their own way, in their own small spaces. The way you interact and engage with the Constitution should be more vibrant. People should be ready to dirty their hands in a very unapologetic manner.
It's a man-eat-man society. Politics is how politicians become rich and how people become subjects of lessons they have never learned from. Check the papers. It's not news if it's not on the cover. People make the cover, make the news. People make newspapers. Are in the business of selling politics. Is not undercover when it's on the front page on the 7th day.
Freedom of the mind, freedom of the soul. I need freedom of the mind, freedom of the soul. See, I need freedom to be heard, freedom to walk and freedom to grow, freedom to vote and freedom to be me, freedom to hear, freedom to worship freely. I need freedom of the mind and freedom of the soul.
We've made justice a game of hide and seek. Those who seek the truth are abducted by people who hide their faces. Anyone who can see their reflection in the mirror is a danger to a government that wants to lead the blind. 10. We vote in leaders because of their second names. 10. We forgot Piogama Pinto did not need a second name. 9. Before I was born, corruption marred my country. At the wedding, my grandmother was the kid with flowers and no speech to read. 9. Mr. Politician, before you sponsor your Facebook page, there's something you need to know. 1,000 likes don't make you the leader we like. Sometimes it makes you the source of something we need to be led from. 8. Who teaches the police about rights when they're never wrong? Change won't come when our leaders change. Change will come when we change. 1. I have a dream. One day we'll vote in leaders, not because of where we come from, but because of where we are going.
Now, if you go to Article 10, it outlines the principles and the national values. And this is like the thread that connects the entire Constitution. So if this is the constitutional promise, this is how we decided as Kenyans that we wanted to manage our affairs. Are we living the promise? That is the biggest question.
Struggles that we're seeing, the slow implementation of devolution, particularly the transfer of functions and resources. And now the accompanying ineffectiveness of local governance and service delivery makes devolution one candidate for such. That in terms of the letter, we have it as a hit, but in terms of the spirit, still the center wants to control quite a bit of that. The challenges around the gender, the two-third gender principle, 14 years later, you know, we are still very comfortable having half of the team dismally represented in our governance. And this poor political culture of social welfare dispensation, of basic bad manners such as voter bribery, are the issues that we have all to look at each other in the eye and say, look, we are behaving badly and this cannot fix our political order.
The Constitution doesn't give us principles of bad governance, but principles of good governance, and this is in Article 10 of the Constitution. Ethics are the compass of our moral values. And I think this is the time to have a discussion and say, we should not point fingers at the political class because they are products of ourselves.
If it wasn't for the women reps, there are at least 10 counties in this country where the citizenry will never have seen a female leader because we didn't elect even a single woman MCA. And therefore, it has helped. Where we have adhered to the law, it has helped. Where we have not, and that is the large part, I think it needs to embarrass and even prick our national conscience.
So the topic on leadership and integrity is very critical if we are really to realize the fruits of the Constitution. Without good leaders, without good governance, we will still come here next year and the years to come and talk about the same issues that we are talking about. It is because of bad governance that we are still complaining about health, we are still talking about poor education, we are still complaining that our land, public resources are being grabbed, and yet nothing tangible is being done.
Rule of law, in my view, has gone a big miss in terms of respect for the rule of law, because it starts from the obligation of the individual who is supposed to do the right thing. And those right thing, again, goes back down to integrity, back down to ethics, because are we doing the right thing even when nobody's watching? Or are we waiting for an order, a police officer to come and arrest and force us to do certain things? So we speak of leadership, we speak of integrity, we speak of good governance, but rule of law and what is supposed to be done in terms of respect for the law, respect for doing the right thing, we are not yet there.
When we think where our mindset is at, pre-2010 and post-2010, the lion is the pre-2010 mindset, where in the face of government action that is unconstitutional, when you look at your role, you see a kitten instead of seeing the lion that you are as a citizen. Post-2010, when you look at this whole conversation about transformative constitutionalism, you get Article 1, which was the national anthem during the entire mass action in June, that acknowledges that all sovereign power belongs to you. Now, what that is supposed to do is transform you from the lion that is seeing a kitten in the mirror to a kitten that is actually seeing a lion, because that is what the Constitution of 2010 sees of you and your role in ensuring the implementation of the Constitution.
We need to get behind the Constitution for the Constitution to defend us.
kwanza usiongee. Wewe kwa mama walipeleka kwa ile kona ya huko mkae. Hapa wanaume wewe. Wamama zako wanauza mishiri. Wewe unauza kuna matano huko utauzia nani? Unaona that poor banks ni maziwa. Yeye hapo na dispenser and sometimes anaweka kwa pikipiki yake anapeleka. Jana when he came hapa akapatana na hizi bottles ziko kwa hii barabara. Hiyo barabara ni mbaya. Do you know aligonga pothole? Maziwa yote 50 liters iko wapi sasa hivi? Nyuma. Amefunga hapa nyuma. I'm telling you guys, it was embarrassing. Phone yule imemweka chini. He was okay. Makosa hii kufanyikia hapo. Kumbe bila alipiga pothole, ile tanki ya maziwa ikaenda juu. Ile aluminium. Sasa yeye akingangana kurudisha, ikarudi. Hapo kwa welding bado anamtoa. Yes. Hapo ndani ya tanki ya maziwa. Yani it is bad. Sasa maziwa we thought that isiende hasara. So everybody akanunua mkate na kangumu. So acha tu hiyo ndio alisha. Hapana. So mkate unachukua kwenda kwa maziwa isiende hasara. Basi protein ni mbaya. What do you mean? Si karibu hiyo hapo. Yes. Mheshimiwa lazima we have lazima tuone. Huyo anaenda. Hapo huyo anaenda. Wamama oye! Oye! Wamama su. Sasa mimi nimepitia hapa. Yes. Nimesema niwasalimie kidogo. Wewe mheshimiwa. Nilikuwa nakimbia mambo ya bunge kidogo. Mheshimiwa kusalimia gani? Yes. Siku hizi zinamaanisha ni salamu ni mtaji aje ni hapa. Mheshimiwa kwanza mimi nakushukuru. Yes. Bibi yangu ulipatia CDF. Mtoto ameenda shule. Tunakufurahia sana. Kwa kazi nzuri ulifanya. Bibi yangu hata sasa hivi anakutamani anashangaa. Na haki akikupata. Yes. Atakupiga kimunju. Hawa mama nitakuja hapa. Yes. Kila mtu atapata 200. Mheshimiwa, hii kama jeshi yangu. Yes. Sitaki niwache kuawacha bila kitu. Ukiona vijana wanajaribu kuleta fitina, wengine wananiendea mpaka kwa koti wanaleta kesi ya ziko. Nataka mheshimiwa nipatie yako. Leta wa mingi. Nisaidie ya wa mingi. Naona GNC waliongeza size ya skirt. Okay. Tumetoka hapa kuongelea nini sasa? Tuliongelea nini kwani? Nini tumefanya inakusema? Wewe sahi. Tumetoka hapa kulia kuhusu tu. Alimwaga maziwa yake kwa sababu ya barabara. Mwenye anataka kutengeneza barabara, si alikuwa hapo umemwambia? Ni huyu. Makosa imefanyika. Makosa imefanyika ni sisi tunafanya makosa. Makosa ni sisi tunafanya. Do you know that we have the best constitution lakini hatuitumii? Wewe umetumia constitution to your benefit aje? Haujui kwa sababu hujawahi. Hatuwezi kuwa tunapitia zile shida ambazo tulikupitia wakati wa colonial period na hapa tuko hapa tuna celebrate ya progressive constitution senior wadosi. Wadosi kina nani? Constitution ya each and every Kenyan. Shida zetu zote ziko hapo. The constitution protects us. Do you know it has been 14 years since the promulgation of the new constitution? 14 years. Kwani 2010 ni nini? Si ni juzi tu 14 years ago. Kuna pesa ya kampeni. Unakumbuka? Sasa kazi sio kupata pesa ya kampeni. Hizi handouts hazitusaidii. What we need is good systems. It is our responsibility kama Wakenya to make sure that how politicians wanafanya according to the constitution. It is their responsibility to withhold and protect the constitution. Umesikia? I agree. Sasa nimejua kwa nini umekuwa ukienda 2 kilometers. Kumbe huko usikujisaidia tu hadi masomo unasoma. Unajua hiyo ndio jaituambia. Kama kizungu unajua. Ni kidogo tu. I'm also shook. I'm also shook. Why?
And you've seen the importance of civic education, mtaani. We've seen the issue of the impact of tokenism, at the political level, even as we participate as citizens. And we've also seen political hypocrisy from citizens and from our politicians.
But one thing I must also emphasize is that this public participation has been really like on steroids over the past few years. But the question we ask ourselves is, what amounts to public participation? When Parliament has done any public participation, say for example like finance bill, which I think everyone can relate, then they have to give justifications as to why they picked certain issues or why they did not. But that was not the case, and therefore we see that whereas there's been a lot more of citizens being engaged, we are still seeing that the decisions being taken by both government, parliament, are not necessarily reflective of the desires of the people.
So one of the things that we're even trying to see, even when it comes to strategizing, how do we now train these young people when it comes to even the process of budgeting, as he has mentioned, that they can be able to disseminate this information in a language that the young person in campus can be able to understand, so that when it comes to even holding the leaders accountable, when it comes to even the budget process and monitoring, they have a basis as to what it is that they are holding people accountable. Most of the things that are done even in the budgeting is the document that they are using. It's so, I want to say CSO jargons, but then what is the language that the young people can understand, be it audio, be it animation, something that is visual attractive also for them to be able to understand. And even that is even something that as basic as the Constitution, which is what all of this is anchored towards, so that they can be able also to even have a very good idea of what the Constitution is saying and how they can be able to be actively participating in these budget processes and evaluation.
Just a few weeks ago, we were talking about public debt. People are speaking about the conversation, even at county levels, about pending bills and how it has affected the life of the common mwananchi who relies on this money to be able to get their daily subsistence or whatever. When we talk about public debt, the ripple effect, to me, is the road that my son needs to use. The bus has to take longer, so he has to wake earlier. Let's not look at it from up here.
And I think for many of us, we have got to a point where we realize that unless we begin to define what does progressively attained mean, then we are going to perhaps be progressively attaining this into 6 or 7 generations and not see a society in which people can walk into medical clinics and to hospitals and get treated without having to dip into their pockets or their families go into financial catastrophes. So I think that is probably my reflection in this moment, that we do need to start seeing the kind of energy that we saw around debt, around the projects, the unfinished projects. We need to start seeing pressure points begin to develop around those points of service delivery that are coming at those points, not just from a moral argument, even a financial argument, but from a rights-based compliance argument. So when are we going to start seeing people, state officers who are essentially presiding over clinics, schools, and various other water points being sued for the failure to provide good quality services? If the United States can have a vice president in the Democratic Party who comes to lead in that country and self-declare that he has no stocks, he has no bonds, and he has no real estate, and it is a truth, then why are we allowing people to be appointed to positions who are coming essentially to expand their personal wealth at the expense of public services? So I think that's one of the areas that I would like to see not Gen Z focus on, but the multi-generational accountability movement that I like to call the Occupy movement. I would like to see them occupy that discourse very directly.
So when I scan the disability landscape in national and also in the counties, we have seen some surge of numbers of persons with disability participating specifically on budget processes, especially on the formulation stage and also in the implementation stage. The numbers are very high when you compare to some baseline. The numbers right now are very high, which is thanks to the Constitution on centering the participation bit of it. The question we are trying to ask ourselves mostly is we are seeing the numbers being high, but what about the effectiveness of that participation? That's we are trying to grapple with that. For it to be effective, it does not really have to be organized in the way that you think you want to register things, you want them to be guided by rules and all that. I think if you are to structure it in that way, then it will fall under the categories of other organizations and it might lose some of its import.
Are we really participating in implementation of this? Yes, the constitution is good, but it's good if it's being implemented. Then the other emerging issue is on awareness, issue of civic education. Are Kenyans aware of the constitution? Do we have adequate knowledge as Kenya about the constitution? Because if you have to implement and have gains, then Kenyans have to be knowledgeable on that. So as civil society, that's another great role we have to play. Then there's issue of constitutionalism and Utu. How do we ensure that there's been a challenge in that, ensuring that we promote the constitution, defend the constitution, and also promote the broad culture of Utu. Then there's issue we are told about. We have to occupy, I think the judge said about this, how can activists and even others in the civil society ensure that they occupy the public spaces and the governance spaces so that they are able to bring the change. So that's another issue which is arising. Then summary on public finance, another very important area. There's opportunity in the public finance management circle for the participation in the budget processes. Do citizens have knowledge so that they're able to participate in budget processes and engage properly? Then there is also issue of participation. Is it just participation or is it meaningful? Another role we have to play as the society, the civil society, including inclusion of PWD, the youth, and all the others. Then the issue of debt, it has been said that it really affects service delivery because we end up paying debts and then the quality of service delivery is really affected. I think those are some of the summary. And I just have one quote which says, however, a good constitution may be, if those who are implementing it are not good, it will prove to be bad. And however bad a constitution may be, if those implementing it are good, it will prove to be good. So when we are saying about the implementers, it's not only the government. How about us in the community? And that is the practice of constitutionalism. Thank you, very great.
Thank you very much. As you leave, God bless you and safe travel home.